Welcome, everyone, to the Election Sign Candidate Information Session. My name's Lisa Lyons, and I'm the Director of Legislative Services and the Town Clerk for the Town of Newmarket. So please note that this session will be video recorded, and that video recording will be posted to the candidates' porthole and to the election website so that those candidates who weren't able to attend this evening are able to get the same information, as well as any members of the public who might take interest in this topic. So to start things off, I'd like to introduce you to the town's election team that's here with me tonight. And I'll start with Kieran Sani, our Deputy Clerk, Sarah Neeson, Julia Winters, Philip Zambito, Barb Mendonça, and then we also have our enforcement team here this evening, so they're scattered around the room, but I'll introduce them. Leslie Long, Supervisor of Bylaw Enforcement. Florence DePassio, she's in the back there. Shelley Andrews. Jennifer Lindsay. Matt Gill. Jeff McIntosh. John Como. Max Potter, John Quinn, and Adam Sargent. So also joining us tonight is Nelson Costa, and he's the Manager of Corridor Approvals and Safety from the Roads and Traffic Operations Division at York Region. And we also have John LaChapelle, the Program Manager of Corridor Controls and Roads and Traffic Operations Branch at York Region. Won't let me scan. Sorry, just one sec. There we go. So tonight we'll cover what's new in the election sign bylaw, which was reviewed and updated into a standalone bylaw in 2017. Ms. Long will review the do's and don'ts of the town's election sign bylaw, and then Mr. Costa will review the placement of signs under the region's sign bylaw. In terms of questions, I'd ask that you hold off until the end, as your questions may be answered as we progress through the presentation, and we will ensure everyone has an opportunity to ask their questions this evening. If we can't answer your questions tonight, we will follow up with all candidates through the candidate newsletter. So I want to thank you again for attending, and we hope that this information session will provide benefits to you and to your campaign team as you work through your campaign. Thanks.
Welcome, everybody. What we'll do is start off with our highlights that we did for the 2017. Basically, we formed a regional working group with all the municipalities and the region, and came up with some consistencies so that everybody aligned. And that, the main one that we did was the 28 days on September 24th and starting at 10 a.m. in the morning. We already aligned with the region regarding our size, so we didn't have to change anything in that. And then the other major thing that we had to change was our definitions for the third-party registers and advertisers. And then again, our fee structure, we used to have it as a deposit, now it's a non-refundable. So our election size again, is the area is 1.49 square meters. Also, the height and the width is 1.22 meters. On public property, the town does not allow any election signs on public property. And regarding the regional, Nelson will comment on that later. On private property, please get the permission of the property that you're putting it on and get their consent to place the sign on their property, as well as we only allowed one sign per candidate per property. Unless you abut 2 street lines, then you're allowed 2. So the fee structure that has changed for the municipality is that it's a $500 non-refundable fee, which is $250 for the municipality and $250 for the region. As well as that, if the enforcement team does remove any signs, there's a $25 fee that will be invoiced to the candidates. Again, on September 24th at 10 a.m., you're allowed to start placing your signs around the town of Newmarket, and you can, up until election day, and then 72 hours after that, all signs must be removed. As well, we have postcards in your bags for tonight. I think there's 10 in each bag, so that you can hand out to your election campaign team for the placement of signs. This is just showing where you can and cannot. Basically, if there's a curb, you have to be 6 feet back. If there's a sidewalk, you have to be 2 feet back from that sidewalk. And we don't allow any signs on mediums, on any town property, as well as site triangles to not interfere with any traffic. And then on the back of your card, there's a do's and don'ts. And basically, it's just highlighting when you can put your signs out, the size of the sign, and when you can't, utility poles we don't allow, and all the medians, and it's all on the other side. So signs will be held for 30 days. If the signs are not picked up after that 30 days, they will be recycled. After the 22nd, you have the 72 hours to remove all your signs. Also, if we do remove them, again, we will invoice all candidates with what signs we have removed. Now, we will be also notifying when we pick them up, we'll have the dates, time, location, the reason why, so if anybody needs to know that, we will have that information as well. Our enforcement team will start monitoring as of September 24th, and we'll still monitor up until October 25th. Again, we will have all the information on why we did it, dates, times, locations. And then after that, the election day, you can set up a time with our office to pick up your signs. We'll have a scheduled time where you can we'll schedule it with you and go over and retrieve all your signs. And then our election process. There's a guide in your bag tonight that we've put in place for our procedures of how we were going to deal with all our sign removal. Any complaints that you have regarding any election signs can go through our customer service. And if any of your complaints regarding defacing of signs will go through York Regional Police. Hand it over to you. You want me to click? Do you want to come up? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to focus my presentation on the sign location primarily, because that seems to be the area of greatest concern, especially when it comes to public safety. The interest for the region and for the town is that we want to ensure that signs are placed as per the regulations in the bylaw, because we want to promote public safety. And that's why there are a lot of restrictions on where signs can be placed, so I want to really focus on that. But to start off, we do have a bylaw. Bylaw number is 2015-36. It is, I'm going to say there's a lot of synergies with the town's bylaw now, with the timeline for installation of signs, the recovery of signs, and even some of the placement of the signs themselves. The information is available on York Region's website. If you go to york.ca/election sign guide, you can not only look at all the regulations, but there are some placement cards, which I have an example on the next slide, of where you can and cannot place the signs. And as was pointed out, there's a non-refundable fee that will be collected by the town for installing signs on the regional roads. So to that point, there is no requirement to register at the region for installation of signs on the regional roads. You'll do that through the town. So this placement card, it's not very clear for the purpose of this presentation, but again, this information is available on york.ca. And what the card is essentially highlighting is the green area, which is where you're allowed to place your sign. So you'll notice that the setback is from the curb and the street. And it's set back to basically the property limits. And that's an area generally where we don't have a lot of roadside furniture. We don't have transit stops located in that green area. They're mainly in the red zones. And we don't have sidewalks or multi-use paths, so you're not going to be interfering with pedestrian or cycling activity. The number of signs that you're permitted at the intersection are a maximum of 2 signs and 1 per corner. So there's generally 4 corners at an intersection if it's a 4-legged intersection. So you would be allowed to place 2 signs, 1 in each of the corners, or 1 of 2 corners, I should say. So a maximum of 2 signs, 1 per corner. And the sign size is exactly the same as at the town of Newmarket, which is 4 feet by 4 feet. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. For recording purposes, I'm going to use the mic. So sign size is the same as the town of Newmarket's, which is 4 feet by 4 feet. Where you want to place your sign is depicted on the screen in the green areas. You'll notice that there are some boxes in around the image that highlights where there's fire hydrants, there's access points, there's bus shelters, and those are the restricted areas, and there's distances that will identify how many meters set back that we would like the signs to be. And again, that's so that we're not interfering with transit and also pedestrian activity and cycling activity. So the very first bullet on that screen is really critical. We see this every election, and that is signs placed in between intersections. So in accordance with the region's bylaw, the signs are only to be permitted in the green area that's on the screen, which is at an intersection. So in between intersections, signs are not permitted at all. Okay, so I just wanted to stress that point, because we very often see, 12 signs for the same candidate along the corridor, and that is not permitted, and those signs would be picked up. And any sign that is picked up due to non-compliance or due to safety issues will be picked up and will not be released until after the election. So the timeline, again, it's very similar to the town of Newmarket's, essentially starting at 10 a.m. on the 24th of September. And all the signs will then start being collected on the 23rd of October to the 26th. You can come and collect the signs that have been picked up. We ask that you pick up the signs once the election is over, because we don't want to be using obviously our staff time to be doing this. We've got our road maintenance and road maintenance staff who are responsible for other maintenance activities that would then be responsible, and we would be taking them away from those daily activities to pick up these signs. Any signs that are collected and that are held until, I guess, October the 28th, we will then be discarding and we'll be recycling those signs. So we leave that window from the 23rd to the 26th available for you to come pick up your signs, and there won't be a fee that's charged. You'll have the signs that we've collected due to non-compliance or due to safety issues. And that's it. This is an opportunity for you to ask some questions so we can provide some clarity. Guess we'll open up the floor. We have a question, so do we want to take the mic to the individual because it's recorded? Yeah. Okay.
Who's question?
I have a question on the previous slide that you just headed on. Oh, sorry, one more. Yeah, so where it says maximum 2 signs per intersection, I'm assuming that's per candidate. Right. So what is the maximum combined number of signs for all candidates per corner?
Okay, so there's one item that I failed to mention, and within the election sign guide that's available online, there are intersections throughout York Region, and given that we're very specific here to Town of Newmarket, in that guide, there are intersections that are considered to be restricted. And those restricted intersections are areas where the intersection is not large enough or there's not enough property to have signs placed. And so I wanted to highlight that because to answer your question, you're permitted to install signs at all intersections that are permitted, a maximum of 2 signs per candidate, 1 per corner.
Okay,
So we don't have a restriction on the number of signs. The only restriction that we have is the intersections because of the amount of property that's available to put signs at the intersection.
okay, that's fine. I was under the impression at the permitted intersections, there was some kind of a limit of 5 maximum per corner. So,
No, that as per our bylaw, the bylaw does speak to temporary signs, but within the bylaw, there's a specific section that speaks to election signs, and that's the area that you want to focus on.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. What happens if one of our signs is placed in a different ward for those who are ward councillors? Does it matter? Other than it confuses the voter?
So,
specific to some of the intersections on Davis Drive, say at Davis and Huron Heights, we can't put anything on the corner, right? Any signs on those corners?
yeah, that's correct.
Now, if I get permission from the property owner and behind the setback on his property, that is okay, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Just as a clarification, for corner private lots, not regional, my understanding is that you can have one side facing each street. So in other words, one property can have 2 signs. Am I correct? If it's a corner. Thank you.
On the one slide, did it say that there was no fee for signs removed from regional intersections?
The region is not charging a fee for for picking up the signs that we've removed, but we are withholding them until after the election, so you can't pick them up. It just helps us with the administration. It's just easier for us, and we're really trying to help the candidates understand where the signs should be placed. We're not really trying to penalize the candidates. But we are our primary goal here is just to ensure that our roadways are clear and safe for the public to use them. So we will be out enforcing and monitoring the road network in conjunction with the town bylaw staff, and any signs that are not compliant or that are blocking visibility, impeding travelers, we will be picking up those signs.
Okay, thank you. One other question. I know in the past, candidates have started doing signs at like midnight, the night before signs were allowed. So my question is, will they be out making sure that no one's put signs out the night before if the starting time is 10 a.m.?
Yeah. So,
From the municipality's perspective, yes, we will be having somebody watching that.
yeah, and we do have patrol staff that are out constantly monitoring our roadways. So through that mechanism, we will be doing that. The reason why we didn't choose 12 or 12:01 a.m. and we chose 10 a.m. is, again, strictly because of safety. We don't want people in the middle of the night running around, putting up signs. We don't want people out during the morning rush hour, blocking lanes so they can put their signs out at the intersections. So, you know, we are again trying to work with candidates to find the best time for when these signs should go up, and that's why we chose 10 a.m. It's after rush hour, it's daylight hours, less traffic on the road, less people on the road. So I think that's really the ideal time. And the only other, I guess, important piece of information is when you or your personnel are installing signs, just reassure that they're visible, make sure that they got their safety vests, that if there's a parking lot nearby, pull into the parking lot, because we want to make sure that people who are running around putting up signs, that they're safe, right? So that's our whole goal here.
Any other questions?
Along the corridors, say, Leslie Street, if we're within the guidelines and on the side of the business that may be there, would be able to put a sign there?
So I think what I heard from the town is that if the sign is on private property and you've obtained permission from the property owner, then the sign can remain there. But again, if it's on public property in between intersections, we don't allow those signs there. So it is in your best interest to consult with businesses, property owners to obtain their permission to install your signs between intersections.
Yeah, okay. So as long as we get permission, it's fine,
That's correct.
within the boundaries.
That's correct.
Great, thank you.
Any others?
So if there's no other questions, just a reminder that we do have a sign-up sheet here, and even afterwards, for the first time ever, we're going to have appointments with our enforcement team before signs go up. So if you get home and you start reading through the bylaws, as most of you will probably do, and you have further questions, you'll have an opportunity to set up a one-on-one meeting with one of our enforcement staff team members to go over any of those questions, because again, we want to work with the candidates too and make sure everyone's very clear on all the different rules, and I know it can be confusing sometimes. So we have that option, or if you don't want to come in and have a meeting, please, call our elections office and we can make sure your questions get answered. So thank you for coming tonight.